If you'd like to join the ranks of Patreons and sponsor the show, head over to patreon.com/Cellar Door Skeptics. For less than a 20-ounce soda or an energy drink each week, you can help sponsor us, the hosts, and our charity of choice. Patreon helps Cellar Door Skeptics create better content, become better activists, and it's going to help you stay healthier by drinking one less soda or one less energy drink each week. Click the link in the notes of the show to sponsor us today, because we bring the discussion with the sources.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Walk with me through the cellar door.
A storm is coming, it says.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Welcome to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Episode 156, and we're getting close to the end of the year. I kind of wish I had played the Metalocalypse intro again, just because I love it that much. It's Christmas time, folks, or holiday time, or Hanukkah time, or Kwanzaa time, or I don't know what the Islamic Christmas time version is, but
yeah, I don't know if they have one. I know the Ramadan is in the fall, but
yeah, I don't know. Maybe they don't have one. But either which way, it's the holidays, folks, and here we are coming back at you again, having the conversations, looking through different topics for the week. Just a quick update from us on different things. If you aren't a Patreon sponsor, join the show for $1 an episode, or $5 an episode, or if you're generous, $10 an episode. We donate the majority of the money to charity once a year, as well as it helps pay for the hosting of the show. And we've been doing more behind-the-scenes content, and I haven't been telling Hannah, so it's all a surprise to him. But I've been randomly recording us when we've been having conversations. I kind of upload different pre-show, post-show, different clips, different random tangents him and I have offline, different things like that. So there is behind-the-scenes content for Patreon if you are not a sponsor. But join up, help the cause, and pay for the hosting services.
yeah, and it's like hanging out in the room with us, because there's like really, like, this is like just us talking as friends a lot of times, just chatting about some kind of interesting topic. Usually it probably needs the explicit tag. I don't swear that much on the show, but I swear in real life.
Yeah, and there's no reason to put an explicit tag on, because it's Patreon, and we don't publish it publicly. So anyway,
yeah.
Long story short, you want to support the show, Patreon's the way to do it. Thank you very much for those who have joined us in the past couple of months. Moving forward, we have some interesting topics tonight. I couldn't help but start the show out by reviewing with everybody a legalization discussion, right? And we've kind of avoided talking about pot a little bit for the most part since it's been legalized in Michigan. Woo! You know,
I know.
And so we've kind of avoided talking about it because, you know, it is what it is, right? But there was a article that a conservative friend of mine posted from Fox and Friends, of course, about how in Florida, a 12-year-old gave out gummy candy. And so I thought it would be imperative as we start the show to play the ridiculous content that they're spewing. I'm sorry. It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah, so warning, Fox and Friends pending in the near future.
Exactly.
7 felony charges after handing out gummies laced with marijuana to fellow students during gym class.
All right, I have to stop the clip right there because they gave a 12-year-old 7 felonies. 7 felonies for passing out marijuana candy. Now, I
Black-
get it.
Quick, important question. Was it a black kid or a white kid?
Ooh, good question. I don't know, actually, to be honest with you.
Man, I'm going to Google the heck out of that right now, because my first thought is like talking to the age of it or whatever. The other day, the 16-year-old girl who killed the guy who was trying to rape her got 51 years in prison because she was a sex worker. She had been forced into it as a sex slave, basically. And I've seen so many people out there and be like, nowhere in America would this happen to a 15-year-old, 14-year-old, 16-year-old white girl. And like, if this is another case where this kid got the book slammed on him and he's a little black kid, we'll see. We'll keep listening to the clip, and I will try to find that out on the Googles.
Those gummies contained 100 milligrams of THC, the psychoactive ingredient in marijuana. 5 of those students who ate those pot-laced candies were rushed to the hospital.
Joining us right now with his warning for parents in Polk County, Florida, of course, Florida, is Grady Judd. He's the sheriff there. Sheriff, there's so many states that are considering this, whether...
So I'm going to stop again right there. They're bringing the sheriff on because the sheriff is somehow the expert, A, in laws, and B, in marijuana. So just to set the stage here, folks, they brought a sheriff from a random, from the county that this happened in Florida, who doesn't support legalization, who's probably conservative, and trigger warning, he's white as all get out, flat out. He is the whitest guy you've ever seen. I'm that serious.
Well, I mean, the Fox and Friends isn't going to bring someone on that's going to question them. They're going to bring on someone that's going to support them. It's cognitive bias at its best. That is what that morning show is. It's coffee and cognitive bias.
So what was a Metalocalypse quote? Duncan's coffee, right?
The Duncan House coffee?
Yeah, Duncan Hill House coffee. Coffee and murder, right?
Yeah.
It's coffee and murder. This time it's coffee,
gummies, and murder.
Gummies, and maybe a little bit of murder. I don't know. We'll see.
It's medical marijuana or recreational marijuana. This is a warning signal. What is your warning?
Well, I'm not a prophet and I don't have a crystal ball, but I've been telling people in the state of Florida for years.
So he's not a prophet, and he doesn't have a crystal ball. Two things that, A, cannot be demonstrated to exist, and yet here he is purporting that he is not one of them because he knows he can't be.
That whenever you take a substance like marijuana and you put the THC into gummies, it's going to end up in children's hands.
Now, here you go. He says, anytime you put the THC in gummies, it will end up in children's hands. And I'm going to correct this because in my household, the THC has never ended up in the children's hands. And in California, if we actually go through the books, there is only 2 instances where THC has ended up in children's hands. And marijuana in California has been decriminalized for, I don't know, it's got to be like 10 years now, for a long time.
It's been a little while. Well, there's one question on that. Using that logic, gummies or having any THC is going to get into kids' hands no matter what. Well, guns in houses with bullets get into kids' hands quite often. And you could probably check the numbers. I would bet you it's probably more. I really would. How many accidental gun deaths happen with children? So he's going to look at that situation and be like, that's fine though, because guns and responsibility, the parents need to be responsible and needs to be locked up safely. Oh, really? So we don't have the same kind of responsibilities for alcohol, tobacco, and drugs that are legal in our houses? Or you just don't like this one, so you're angry at it? Meh.
I don't know.
Whatever.
I think we'll see.
And when you look at the package, it's called the Green Hornet. It is packaged and marketed toward children. So what did we end up with?
It's not, by the way.
We ended up with 6 12-year-old children who overdosed on...
All right. Key point here. He claims they overdosed. Now, let's Google for a second. What is an overdose?
Just using semantics or whatever, I would think that an overdose is more than the maximum amount of dosage. So like when someone's overdosing, this is like I'm gonna say a dangerously or terminal possible situation. So what do you got?
So a drug, this is Wikipedia, but a drug overdose is an ingestion or application of a drug or other substance in quantities greater than recommended or generally practiced. An overdose may result in toxic state or death. The word overdose implies that there is a common safe dosage and usage for that drug. Therefore, the term is commonly only applied to drugs, definitely not poisons, even though poisons are harmless at low dosage. Now, so here's the crux of this, right? First off, marijuana has not been studied to find out if there is a dangerous dose. 2, marijuana has never killed anybody. If you take marijuana
directly, like maybe car accidents and all that kind of crap.
If you sit in your house and you take marijuana, you will not die. No matter how much you ingest. At this current phase in life, there is 0 instances of death. Now, if you take marijuana and go out and drive, you're right, you could die.
Yeah.
But that's not because you took marijuana. It's because you drove under the influence of something you should not be doing and died. Period.
Yeah, I agree entirely. So the idea of the overdose to me is like there's like a safe amount or a normal amount of dosage. And I guess if you want to really play the semantics of the word, these kids probably took a little bit more than they're supposed to because they probably just all of them grabbed a handful or a few. And I haven't seen, did they say that the kids knew that they were pot gummies or did they think they were candy?
They get into that.
Okay.
Green Hornet gummies full of marijuana.
Right.
That's right. They were stoned. They got very sick. 5 of them were transported to the hospital by ambulance.
Sheriff, do we know, did this kid know they were marijuana based, or did he think it's just candy? And if so, did he take him to the gym class because it's like, hey, look what I got? Or was it just an accident?
No, it wasn't an accident at all. He knew exactly what it was. It was a complete package, 100 milligrams of gummies. They're divided up or segmented into 10 individual doses for adults, sold legally in California, and somehow it made its way here. He's given us 2 or 3 stories about how he came upon this complete package, but he told another buddy, I'm taking it to school to sell it. Well, the 6 kids overdosed. The 6 of them had doses for 10 adults. And
So here again he goes, the 6 of them had doses for 10 adults. So yes, did the kid know? Yeah, Hannah, he did know what he was doing. You know, they're still befuddled by how they got a California drug into Florida. I'm not befuddled by that, but somehow they are. Now, in fairness, and I'm going to dispel a theory even before we hear it. In fairness, I went online for Green Hornet, and I looked it up. I said, you know what? It's legal in Michigan now. I want to see, can I get this? You want to know what the answer is, folks?
Probably not.
The answer is no. I cannot import it to Michigan. Even though now it's legal here, I cannot order it out of California or Colorado and get it in Michigan. It does not happen. It checks
Unless
where
you
your credit card
in.
is from. It checks where your address is. Yeah, if I drove there and drove it back, I could get it. But I cannot just order it on the internet and have it simply show up at my house. Now, is there illegal ways called like Silk Roads and different things on the internet that you could use to get these?
Yeah, I'm sure there's people that buy them and sell them and do that kind of stuff like that.
Exactly. Is the 12-year-old smart enough to use the Silk Road? I would wager 99% no. Like, he didn't do that.
I would have a hard time believing that 12-year-olds can figure out how to use Bitcoin and stuff like that too. I mean, that's I don't even know how to use Bitcoin. I've been skimming around the edges, learning more and more about it, but I have a hard time believing that kids would be able to get on it. First, use Tor and actually get into the dark web, then make purchases and do all that kind of stuff. You know, there's a bunch of things that are involved there. And bringing it back to my gun analogy earlier, it's like, well, who had these things? Who brought them in? And There's all kinds of regulations and things that we can do to stop these things. But having a patchwork of all the different states having different rules, different things, this is going to happen more often if everybody can't just get along in the entire country and a majority supports marijuana legalization in some way, shape, or form, be it medical or light legalization or whatever. I don't know. I think that easier ways to fix this problem. I always said that make these packages look like crap, because if anybody watches the video, you can see it. It kind of looks like a gummy bear package. It's got like spirals, but it also looks like tie-dye, like a pothead hippie thing. So like, I guess I can kind of go both ways. Could you put a big
warning on it? Probably. Yeah, this package contains THC, CBD, and THCH. Sure.
But
okay, you could do
what
that.
A 12-year-old's going to see that warning and be like, "Hell yeah, man!" You know what I mean? Like I would have if I was 12 years old. I don't know. I understand the concept of like all the things that we can do, and it comes down to the same thing we always do: is education and parental responsibility and people doing the right thing. Blah 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 blah. And there's going to be issues and small problems, but it's not. Nothing's going to be perfect. And these people that are just freaking out, boxing friends, I don't expect them to be the voice of reason here.
You can see the end results weren't good.
Sheriff, I'm thinking 12 years old. We were 6th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade then. I mean, you're just learning about life. No one's even thinking about, you haven't even kissed a boy at that point. How in the world are you seeing more of this where kids, not even teenagers, they're 12, where they're getting their hands on drugs?
Exactly. They're 12 years old, and they devoured this bar of gummies. But think about it for a minute. If this is truly medicine for the very sickest, why are we packaging it for children? Why are we calling it Green Hornet? And it stung all of those kids really hard. And by the way, we have stung the one kid that sold it with 6 felony counts. But we're looking to see where it came from. He's given us 2 or 3 different stories.
So, and I don't want to spend much more time on this, honestly, but they gave the kid 6 felonies. You gave a 12-year-old 6 felonies. Now, I get it.
Welcome to America.
I get it. If he dosed kids unwillingly, that's pretty sadistic, right? That's like stealthing. I get it. That I don't know about the felonies. I get that there should be a harsher punishment. But if he's selling it, right, and these kids are knowingly buying it, he's like, yeah, I got some pot gummies. You want to buy them? And they're like, oh, yeah. All right. Mm-hmm. This is not like heroin. It's not like he walked up and said, hey, I got a little bit of heroin, or, oh, I got a little bit of marijuana, and handed them heroin, right?
Yeah.
Marijuana is not lethally toxic. It's not this big bad drug that's going to kill you no matter what dose you take. Did they get hospitalized? No. Did they get treated at the hospital? Yes.
Well, but they probably didn't. Like, the parents didn't know what the heck was going on.
Well, they didn't even give the parents the choice half the time. They started taking the kids to the hospital before they gave the parents the choice. And, one parent took their kid out of the hospital and took them somewhere else. And, in fairness, right,
we're going to Miss Cleo's.
Yeah, we're going to the psychic to take care of this. Yeah, we got to ward the marijuana ghosts out of us. I don't know. I get it. Was this a proper dose for a 12-year-old to take? Absolutely not. Should the 12-year-old have been selling it or even giving it away for free at school? Absolutely not. Should we endorse 12 and 13-year-olds doing marijuana? And now I sound like a Fox and Friends guy.
Injecting the marijuanas.
should we endorse them taking marijuana? No, we should not. We should help preserve them so that they can finish their education, get their degree, and then, you know what? Hey, go have fun after that, right? I'm not in opposition of what they're saying about trying to restrict it. I'm 100% against giving any kid 6 felonies. I'm 100% against trying to demonize marijuana as this evil, horrible thing that almost killed somebody. Because again, statistics show nobody ever in the world ever has died of marijuana. It's like, have you ever died from eating beef? No. Have you died from
Well,
overeating?
maybe 50 years later or something.
Yeah. Can you die from overeating? Yes. But it's not because of beef. It's because you overate.
You have a
and
heart
the
attack.
difference is here. Can you die of marijuana? No. Has anybody had any circumstance that allowed you to suffer from this to the greater extent than what it is? No. So until somebody dies from being completely sober except for pot, can we even measure the legitimate amount of THC in their blood to see if it caused that individual to die?
I mean, really, it comes down to, like, we've had the comparisons, and I know people disagree. The majority of the people in this country do see a relative parallelism to alcohol. So let's say a kid took a 6-pack of booze or took a vodka bottle and he was handing it out or giving it to his classmates and they got drunk. And I mean, let's say 6 12-year-olds drank a fifth of vodka. There's going to be some happenstance. There's going to be some people tumbling over. 12-year-olds are small humans. Anyways, so like, let's say they all end up in the hospital. Is that a 6 felony situation? That's the comparison here that we have. And so, like, they didn't know they were drinking something, but it tasted kind of funny and they weren't certain something weird happened. These are 12-year-olds who aren't 100% certain of what's going on. One thing I guarantee you, and I know 100% for certain, is that using the idea of the big stick method to punish the heck out of one kid in this kind of situation ain't going to help the problem. It ain't going to help anybody in the area, 12-year-olds that are going to be like, holy crap, you hear about that one kid who got 6 felonies? They're going to be like, what does that even mean? This is stupid. Let's go get some pot gummies. Like, it's that isn't the way you do these things. You can't change through punishment. We know that this doesn't work. The war on drugs failed, and you look at the country's perspectives. Marijuana is actually a good deal nowadays. Like, there's a bunch of things that we've changed throughout history now, and Republicans and a lot of people in the judiciary, and I mean, let's face it, sexagenarians, we're talking 60, 70, 80-year-olds that are in government. They're still in 1943 when marijuana would make you go crazy and play the piano at 140 beats per minute. Like, this is their world. And so, like, their idea is still the same thing. Punish. And this kid having 6 felonies is going to have his life destroyed. I can almost guarantee you that he's going to have just as many problems, if not more, now because of it. Like, I mean, it's just crazy to go this hard on a kid.
Exactly. And that's what I don't agree with. Well, enough of the pot talk. Let's switch subjects a little bit. We want to endorse the local charity of the week. Here, let me play you a clip of the charity we're going to endorse.
So my character name was Isabella and Isabel. They are both twins and they are really shy. They are best friends even though they are sisters. Sometimes your sisters or your brothers can be like a best friend to you. What I'm most excited about is working with a teacher.
The Creative Youth Center of Grand Rapids. That is our charity of the week. I kind of found this through another website, 616 West Michigan, where they were promoting some of the local charities. This one caught my attention because of my daughter. My daughter loves to draw. She loves to write. She's made her own board game for us to play because we love board games.
Whoa.
She has written picture books for us. She has designed art to go on my wall, art to go to my work. And we're talking, my daughter doesn't just do art in terms of a piece of paper. She will take whatever she has and create something out of it. For example, we have some styrofoam from some, furniture
Appliance.
we bought. Yeah.
Yeah.
She found it and repurposed it. At the time we were watching Adventure Time, right? So she was obsessed with that. I was kind of obsessed with it. And so she drew me a picture of Finn and Jake and said, hey, that's me and you. And so when it comes to creativity, I have a very soft spot for pushing that through with children, because I feel that the more creative the child is, the way the child thinks about things, how it can problem solve or look at a discussion point around just a standard base, what you're told to believe it is, the more they're going to be able to help solve some of the problems that face society or endorse the organizations that will help that. So the Grand Rapids Creative Youth Center prepares kids for life's adventures by supporting their writing and amplifying their voices.
It's pretty cool. I really like these types of things. This is something that the Children's Museum is connected to. I noticed that KCAT, the Kendall College of Art and Design, which is attached to Ferris State University, is part of as well. I mean, you're looking at great places for developing minds, and these are the kinds of things that, I mean, they're worth it. They're worth every dollar if you become part of their community or if you donate to help them out. Like, there's nothing better than helping creative young minds just flourish in our society. We smash and crush and jam kids into tiny little stencils so much these days. And the idea of the blue books, the standardized test, you must pass this test and do this thing great. We looked at societies like what China and Japan have, and they have problems with it. They have problems with people that only take a couple of certain jobs because those are the most important and most high paying jobs, as opposed to people following what interests them and is I guess inside them as far as what they really want to do. And like this kind of place here lets people find that. I remember when I was in college, people would always say, like, I don't know what my major is, and that's just struck me as the most impossible thing ever. I knew what I wanted to be. I knew I wanted to be science and engineering, and I wanted to play baseball. One of those two things when I was 12, 13, 10 years old, like I knew that was what I was going to do. Like, and I never understood that because my parents gave me total freedom to like discover and go through all those things, and I just found them. It was awesome. Like, I love the idea that these places and places like this here can give a kid enough of a springboard to like just go find what you really love, and maybe these kids do, and I don't know. I think it's a really cool thing what they're doing.
Yeah. So essentially, what they do is they call it after school adventures to amplify and craft your creativity, right? So it is very focused on writing. In fairness, they do get into a little bit of pictorials, they get into animation, and different things. But what they do is they offer programs for 6 to 18-year-olds at no cost to the families that live in Grand Rapids or attend Grand Rapids public schools. And essentially what they do is they go through different books. They talk about how you can collaborate with each other as a creative collaboration. They talk about exploring books. They talk about how to become a creative writer. And all of this is free. And the idea behind this is a lot of people are like, okay, well, hey, this is a great idea. Let's bring this to my school. The idea behind this is that they're looking at schools that have less after-school programs. So you have a child that maybe is a little bit of a writer, likes to write, but is not being able to give them the opportunity or have after-school programs that help support them. Think about it this way. If you live in an area where you have to work a full-time job, your child does not go to school that full-time, right? You have to pay for your child for after or before school care. So if you have a way to give them an outlet that helps their creativity, that they enjoy, and on top of that, you don't have to worry about funding or paying more out of pocket to have your child watched while you're at work, it's even better. So they're doing two things. They're helping watch children as well as giving them skills and teaching them how to work within the normal world. And the reason, again, the reason this one attached to me as a personal individual this time is just because my daughter is so creative. And we actually talked about this. We talked about this clinic and we talked about what it can do. And she goes, well, Dad, I'm not a big writer. And I said, okay, well, what would you think if they had an art program in the similar way? She goes, That would be the best. Can you know, not all kids have the same amount of art supplies I do. And for a 10-year-old to recognize that not everybody has the same amount of stuff as her is just amazing. And we talked about it. We talked about, you know, what can we do? Can we get involved with a local group that we can donate art supplies to? And I think we found one. I think that this is one that, you know, her and I can go down to on holiday break this year. And we can say, hey, here's some supplies. You know, we really appreciate what you do. My daughter loves what you do. And we think this is a huge benefit for other students. Just creating the ability to give students and children a creative outlet so that they're not getting involved with selling pot gummies at school. Just says wonders.
That's a nice tie-in. That's a nice tie-in. I like that. I like that. We link our segments here at Cellar Door Skeptics.
I'm sorry. You're right. I mean, yeah, it's kind of a low, you know, let's link the two together. But, you know,
it's still fun.
It's in fairness, though.
Yeah, it's seriously like the kids that are going to be doing something like this. Yeah, the kids are going to be doing something like this. They're going to be the ones that are going to be like, yeah, I don't really need that. Or my parents told me I can wait until I'm older, and I understand that this is something that I should wait until I'm older. I'm going to go do this because this is more interesting or whatever. Like all of those things are, you know, things that you want to introduce early on. This is great. This is an incredible idea. It's one of the things that I kind of bounce back and forth. I got both of these worlds when I was, you know, the athlete in school, but not the popular athlete. So like I didn't have like, you know, any of the bad influences, so to speak. But every once in a while, you know, you'd hang out with people that were into these types of things, and I would experiment in that world as well. So I kind of had a nice bounce between both of those things. And like kids that are gonna maybe they're in a problem community that has like the pot gummy kids who's running around all over the place, but also they get a chance to go to this place and they see all of these kids who are like, yeah, that's cool, but this is way more fun, or this is something that really challenges me intellectually, and I feel like I'm growing, and I feel like I'm going to be able to write a book when I'm 20 years old, and I'm going to take over, you know, this slam poetry control session because there's another kid who's in charge of it, but he's going off to a college in a different place. So those kinds of connections you need as well. And I feel that we lose some of those when we lock kids into a school and we don't let them experiment and get out anywhere. Like it's tough. It's tough for parents to have time off from their 2-3 jobs that they have in a lot of cases to get their kids to something like this. But if you can, I mean, this is the kind of thing that makes a big difference in a kid's life. And I mean, I love what they're doing, and I hope that everyone has a chance to at least check it out if they don't have something like this in their family's life right now.
Exactly. Links are in the description to donate to the program. You can also volunteer for the program. And if you're a teacher listening to this, especially you can make a huge difference in other children's lives. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll have our science segment on thermodynamics, as well as a look at 2020 and Trump's competition. We'll be right back with more Cellar Door Skeptics.
Well, my character's name is Lucy Prize, and she has two best friends named Milo and Sadie. And they like reading with each other and going to Harry Potter World and pretending they're wizards from Harry Potter. People say she has a cool name because her name is Lucy Prize. What I like about the CYC is that you get to make your own characters and make them come into real life.
Considering how you want to help Cellar Door Skeptics, head over to iTunes or your favorite podcast app and give us a rating, because every rating helps push us in front of new listeners. And since our main goal here at Cellar Door Skeptics is to provide the most accurate information possible, we hope that more ratings will mean that more people get to hear the topics that we're presenting. We don't insist that we get a 5-star rating, but Hannah's favorite number is 5, and the more gold stars he gets, the more special he's gonna feel. So what do you say? Head on over to iTunes or Google Play, give us a rating, and help engage with Cellar Door Skeptics today. Skeptics with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna. Oh, welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all for sticking around with us for that quick commercial break.
Yeah.
We love our local charities, and I don't know. I guess email us if you don't want to hear about it.
This is an awesome segment.
I've really enjoyed it, and it's got the whole point of this was the push before the holidays, right? You want to go out, you want to help people. Everybody listening to the show has morals, right? And everybody listening to the show wants to do something. Now, not that everybody has the ability to donate. I get it. I'll be honest, I'm a little strapped for cash right now. I've had to replace one vehicle, plus I'm paying for repairs on another vehicle, and it's not easy without taking loans out. And so I understand financially not everybody's able to, but a lot of these organizations you can donate your time to. And that's why I try to do a variety, especially if you're local in Grand Rapids and you know, you have the ability to help make a difference. This is the time of the year that's forgiving. And I get it. Should we be giving 24/7? Should we be going out and thinking about this more often? Yes. Our goal here is to help inspire you to the point where, hey, I'm going to make my sort of contribution now. And I'm going to think about next year. How can I make a contribution to help out for the rest of 2019?
But it also doesn't have to be financial.
Exactly.
It could be just you going and doing something. We talked about that the creative center. Like that could be something where if you have the time, but you might not have the money, and maybe you don't have kids or you have a kid, you can take your kid and you could also help other kids while you're there. There's a variety of things you can do. That your time is money. Your time is actually, in most cases, I would bet you more valuable than sending in a donation. If you went in and helped out some of these organizations that we've mentioned in the past, they would be able to do so much more having a few more hands on staff.
Exactly. But you know what? Enough about charities. You know what time it is?
What time?
It's time for science.
It's science time. It's science time.
Oh, and this week on Science Time with your duo, Chris and Chris, the C++ tangent,
man.
C++ tangent here. We're going to talk about thermodynamics.
And it's going to be a bit ranty.
It will be. And that's the fun part about this is we had a science segment planned, and then I scrapped it because I did not find the science behind the discussion that I was looking for. I just found it too horrible. And maybe we'll re-resurrect it, but I just after I got reading the article and then I got into the scientific study, I was like, this sounds not very science-y. It doesn't sound very foolproof, and I'm having a hard time wanting to have that conversation on the show. So I spent all that time doing the research, and then Hannah and I got together, and he's like, well, hey, I have this discussion about thermodynamics that I need to have. And I said,
yeah,
you know what? That is going to trump the, I guess I shouldn't say Trump. Damn it, man. That sucks. That's going to circumvent the horrible marijuana study that I found that I just didn't find very scientific.
Well, when you said that, you saw a study that was kind of unscientific, I had someone link me in a study that said that since the brain still has communications between the synapses, that life occurs after death, and that is proof of an afterlife. And this was published in a scientific medical journal. And it was insane. Which this was actually going to tie in a little bit to our quick saves later. But I basically said, I love the fact that you have this link that you've given me that calls it itself published on a scientific journal. This is an online digital only journal, and it's never been cited, and it has no sources. Therefore, this is garbage. Anyways, rant over. Thermodynamics, new rant. I have been running into, and I think it's got something to do with the holidays. I have been running into thermodynamics and entropy arguments. I've been getting them in my email. I've been seeing them in messaging. I got adding new people on Facebook, and the first thing they send me is the fact that the universe cannot possibly have been created or that science says that the universe cannot possibly have been created because objects don't increase in organization, they only decrease, using thermodynamics as the explanation. And it's been so frustrating. I wanted to do just kind of a quick overlay what you're probably going to hear from a family member. Chris, do any of your family members ever source or cite thermodynamics in any of this garbage when the holiday season comes through?
No, they never get that specific into thermodynamics.
All
we
right.
do have to have conversations about different things, but it does not involve thermodynamics. Usually it doesn't get that deep. They don't think on a deeper level that it's more than the flood didn't exist. Yep, none of these creation stories make sense.
They don't just like grab something that sounds sciencey and be like, "Hey, I got this sciencey thing that's going to beat your science."
Sometimes
that's kind of
okay. 99% of the time, no. I do have a brother-in-law that does believe in old creationism and does not quite accept. He's more accepting of thermodynamics, but not quite. There still is some judgment, and he's
a prime
being
mover
pressured.
guy.
Yeah, he's being pressured into the more of the young Earth creationism inside of the church that he goes to. But he's holding fast. But he says some pretty horrible things. We can get into that later. But
yeah,
go ahead with your rant.
So one of the things that I run into all the time is this is a really simple argument that a lot of people love to use, and you'll hear it in family members, you'll hear it from people around town, and what they're basically saying is that the whole idea that life itself is an organized state, and that the second law of thermodynamics says that an isolated system that's not in equilibrium, where everything is just stable, because we're all dissipating energy and heat, like just your body gives off heat. That is basically a little bit of chaos. An organized system, an isolated system that's not in perfect equilibrium, where there's no change, everything is just stable. So essentially the end of the universe, where all heat and everything is dissipated. That system is always going to be approaching some kind of value of equilibrium if it's not at equilibrium. It always wants to be at equilibrium. And so what they're going to tell you is that it's always, increasing in chaos. It's increasing in destruction, basically. And so that there's the whole idea of the second law of thermodynamics is that it can't increase in complexity. So the idea that life can come out of just the atomic masses is that is an increase in complexity. One of the things that I love about this is that people don't understand what chaos agents we really are. So if you think about entropy as kind of the idea of one of the things I like to say is that like I said, chaos or whatever is that it's the amount of I can't think of the word right now. The amount of I'm gonna have to look it up and see if I can find it. I'm losing on the term right now, but it's basically the amount of chaos in a system. And so that when a system is completely loose and there's no organization in that system, that is, that's the state that everything wants to go to. But it's never going to want to go into an increased entropy system where things are more organized. And so humans ourselves, what we do is we take energy in, and we actually increase the rate at which things are broken and destroyed. And just look at Earth. And so one of the arguments that I like to do is that when someone comes in and say that you can't have things that are increasing in damn it, I'm losing my train of thought.
So they can't increase.
They can't increase in complexity. That's what it was. They can't increase in complexity. Well, because the whole idea of the second law of thermodynamics is basically that things have to increase in they have to increase in basically chaos. They have to increase in disorganized state. So that the ultimate state of the universe, when it's completely happy, is all of the atoms are spread out evenly and there's no heat being emitted. Everything is as cool and as calm and as boring as possible. And so they say that life would have to be an increased you would have to increase in your complexity. Well, they don't understand that for the universe, if you look at the universe as an isolated system, that there are increasing and decreasing scales of complexity when it comes to matter and physics coalescing. But when you think about like a star, so a star is increasing complexity out of a gas. It's becoming more complex. It's doing all kinds of things. There's fusion and fission that are happening, and you're creating heavier elements, and you're combining atoms. Then you have supernovae, which are creating even heavier, more dense atoms. All those kinds of things. You would think that's kind of like increasing your complexity, but in all reality, what it does, it's increasing the speed at which the universe reaches its final equilibrium. And so, like, you can have an increase in complexity. What a human would be, is as long as we ourselves are agents of chaos. And so that's one of my favorite things, is like the idea of the second law of thermodynamics, when they say that the universe has to become completely disorganized and chaotic. That's the point. How can life emerge out of nothing, or emerge out of just plain physical laws that are trying to dissipate energy to the complete equilibrium in the universe? Well, the idea is that if a human or if a planet or if a solar system can dissipate that energy faster, then it'll be like a heat sink, and it'll allow energy to coalesce and then be destroyed and disperse even faster. And so that would bring along the end of the universe even quicker. If that's the case, then the idea of entropy in a system is okay. This is one of the things that I've been trying to explain to a couple of family members that always come back to the idea that thermodynamics is the way for them to explain how life could not emerge from the physical laws. And if you understand what's going on, it's actually thermodynamics is probably one of the most important things as far as explaining how and why the chemical physical laws created life throughout the universe. It could be just in our life, in our solar system and on our planet for carbon-based life forms, but it could be, who knows what, fluorine-based life forms in some other part of the universe. But like the second law of thermodynamics is not an end-all be-all for why you get to increase complexity and create human life out of just atoms bouncing around throughout the solar system.
Are you sure? I heard God made everything.
Well, that's the thing. And the idea that he created everything out of infinite complexity at the very beginning, and then everything's been a complete straight downward hill. So that would mean that he created the universe, knowing that the end of the universe is essentially a cold death, because that's what the science says now.
Well, what if he created the universe as a cold death, and in an effort to say, hey, if you don't want to die that death eventually, you should get everlasting life?
Yeah.
I'm just asking.
I know.
How does thermodynamics handle that question?
The thermodynamics basically goes into the infinite regress at that point. The laws of thermodynamics are specifically tied to our universe. Depending on whether or not you think the cosmological constant is where it is, whether or not the universe is expanding as fast as it should be, equally or slower than it should be, and whether or not there's a multiverse. This really comes down to whether or not you're going to think that there is a first mover that is a benevolent and all-encompassing, all-omniscient being, or if you think there's a multiverse. And if the multiverse is true, then every universe is possible. And the whole idea of like the TV show Quantum Leap, where you get to go visit yourself in 32 million, trillion, billion different versions of when you're you, but you didn't make that one horrible decision that you think about on the nights when you're laying in bed and you're like, man, I really need to get up early in the morning. And then you go over every single regret that you have in your life that keeps you from sleeping for the rest of the night, and you feel terrible the rest of the day.
You know how I fix that?
How do you fix that?
Either with uber amounts of copious alcohol to the point where I can't consciously move, or if I want to be healthier, right? A little bit of marijuana,
a brownie,
helps me forget about my shitty life decisions and say, you know what? Yeah, I made some mistakes, but I'm working to be better.
Yeah. Well, to end the whole segment out here is like, so if you hear someone basically saying that entropy, that the universe is designed to basically become chaos, and that us emerging out of chaos is an increase in complexity, is insane or wrong. Well, first off, you should make sure that you know all 4 laws of thermodynamics. So the 0th law, which is kind of a weird terminology, but the 0 law of thermodynamics is basically if 2 thermodynamic systems are in thermal equilibrium with a third system. So like there's 3 systems and 2 thermodynamic systems, those isolated systems that I mentioned. They're in equilibrium with one other one, then they are equal with each other. This is important just for the equilibrium and basis standpoint. Then there's the first law, which energy can be neither created nor destroyed. It can only change forms. So like when you stop a car, you are taking kinetic energy of the vehicle moving forward and you hit your brakes. It isn't just stopping because of the brake pads rubbing. It's that energy, the kinetic energy, the forward motion is being dissipated into heat, and that heat is being expelled through your brake pads. The second law, obviously, we talked about it. The entropy of an isolated system is not in equilibrium, will tend to increase over time. So essentially, the second law of thermodynamics basically says that a system wants to increase in entropy until it's at complete maximum equilibrium. And then the third law of thermodynamics is a temperature, as temperature approaches absolute zero, the entropy of a system approaches a constant minimum. And so this is what we were talking about. When a system, basically like the universe, its entire energy and heat has been dissipated. So like the cosmic microwave background, which is the little bit of radiation, leftover heat from the Big Bang, that's raised the entire universe's temperature a couple of degrees. The third law of thermodynamics says that as the temperature reaches absolute zero, so the universe cools down completely to its lowest possible temperature, that the entropy of that system, the chaos in that system, is a constant minimum, basically that everything is minimized and the universe dies. And that's the third law of thermodynamics. But it can also be isolated into smaller and smaller things. So if you have a small little box at absolute zero, you can use those thermodynamic properties to explain that. So like anybody who brings thermodynamics in for reasons why God, reasons against humans, you need to take a look at these. We've got we've got some links that can help you read a little bit about it to learn more, because this is one of those things that if you don't know the science and someone throws some science at you and you say you love science, you look like a silly goose right out of the gate. Like you need to know the real basic important physics and chemistry and stuff to be able to refute, because if you love science and you say science is the greatest thing, you do need to learn a little bit more about it to be able to talk that game.
Fair enough. I would agree with you. Thermodynamics is always been a harder concept, something that I've had to do quite a bit of research on.
It's so hard in class
when debating with Christians. Hard. But either way, as we move on to the last topic of the night, which I somewhat think is somewhat of the most important topic of the night, because one of the things that we committed to on Cellar Door Skeptics is to have a conversation about, not about just Trump, but about how do we get him out of office? How do we move past where we're at? How do we create 2020 to be the year of the progressive, right?
Yeah,
and we wanted to talk about Nancy Pelosi. We did.
Pelosi.
What did I say? Pelosi days, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Pelosi. It's all the same. So Nancy Pelosi is running around. She's being crazy. So anything. Sorry.
So we wanted to have that conversation, and I'm not ready for it still yet.
No, not yet.
But I did a little bit of research where I went through 538. I went through the Inception. I did some research on how do we beat Trump in 2020, right? And I don't think there's a solid game plan that anybody's accepted.
No.
But I do think that there's some threads, some tendrils of what we could do to help create an atmosphere where we don't have to have a GOP president, especially Trump, in office in 2020. And that's the important thing here, right, folks? Is that we could talk all day long. We could talk all day long about
all night long.
Drunk ass. We could talk all day long about, the shortcomings of Trump. But if we don't talk about how do we beat him, where are we going to go in, 2020? Where are we going to be? How do we fix this atrocity that we're at? It's not going to change things. So the first thing I did is I found an article from 538. And
was it from Nate Silver specifically?
It was actually from Nate Silver. Yep.
He actually writes stuff.
He does.
Every time I go to that website, it's never him. I'm just like, oh, I guess he doesn't work anymore.
No. So there was a lot of. He's actually been writing a lot lately.
Good for him.
The first article I looked at was looking at the 2018 midterm elections, and at first I was like, why do I care about what the elections say? Right? Why do I give a crap about where the elections are at? What happened? I mean, do I care that we took the House?
Yeah, 40 plus seats, the biggest Democratic win in recent memory.
Do I care that we picked up a few Senate seats and were able to start making a difference there?
Well, we actually lost seats on that one.
Yeah, okay.
Dems.
We did pick up a few.
Well, unexpectedly. But yeah, the Dems overall lost, and the Republicans have a increased majority, so they don't need Mike Pence as much in the Senate anymore, which is a bit frustrating because if you looked at a lot of those Senate races, Democrats actually had the majority of votes, but still due to gerrymandering, the Republicans were able to edge out a win, which is frustrating. But it's more examples of why gerrymandering was a big deal. And why the Michigan proposal on, the anti-gerrymandering, what was it, the committee that they were going to set up was?
Yep, the voter's not politician.
Yep. So
and I agree with you, but the idea behind this is let's look at the midterm elections, right? And the first thing we have to do is we have to go, is this gain by the GOP permanent or semi-permanent, or is it very short-lived? Now, if we look at the maps, right, when we take the analysis of the maps, we can see between 2016 and 2018, the maps look very different. And the 2018 map looks more like the 2012 map than the 2016 map, and which means Democrats are doing better in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. 3 of the large states that need to happen to overturn Trump. And that's the big thing here, right? There's a discussion on point spread, right? We could talk about point spread. I think that's pretty big in my opinion, right? Originally, excuse me, if we look at 2012 with Mitt Romney and Obama versus 2018, right? We can see that the similar point spread in terms of where we're at is 314 Democrats versus 224 Republicans. And we can see that there's a lot more strong Democratic states than previously predicted. And that's huge here if we're talking about predictions of the future, because if 2018 midterms came out to be closer to the 2012, will 2020 show the same stance? Now,
my guess is that economically that'll make the big difference. So if we're leading into a recession, if we see a lowering in GDP, if we see a lowering in economic growth, because we had the short term cocaine version of economic stimulus with the tax plan. Once everything comes to burn and everybody cashes in their tax bills, for the next election or for the next tax plan, or the next tax year. Once we get all of our money back in and everything else, we're going to be looking at huge tax deficits. We're going to be seeing GDP slowing down, and if it continues to go, whether or not that's a big deal. So that'll change what these districts are doing on that. That's probably a big area, whether or not we'll see if it continues as 2012, 2016, or 2018 did.
Yeah. And that's the conversation. They also decided to look at and say, hey, this was a good year, right? And what would happen if it was not a good year?
What if 2018 was not a good year, or 2020?
What if 2020 does not follow the high level of percentages of increase that we saw in 2018? If they take an average, let's say, and then relate it to the rest, the margin of win goes down drastically. We see 278 to 260, which is a lot closer margin than what I just said before.
Yeah.
But the idea behind that is even if we see larger GOP wins than we want, we're going to still see Democratic pickup. And the big thing here is, can we squeak out a win to oust Trump in 2020? And I think the big question here is what are some of the requirements? What are some of the discussion points around how do we fix that? Because a lot of people are saying, hey, I don't want Trump in 2020. But if Republicans don't run a nominee against him, which has not happened in the GOP since you and I have been alive.
Yeah, I was going to say, I cannot think of a time when a Republican actually run against an incumbent during the primaries.
Yeah.
I cannot remember it.
And I don't either. And that's the whole point is we haven't seen that. That's not precedented. So unless that happens, if that happens, look, that throws a huge monkey wrench in every prediction model that's been thrown out there. So
for anything else, like the Mueller investigation, let's say like something like that comes out, that could do that we don't know the immediate future and what's going to be happening with the House Democrats being in charge of all the investigative committees. Like there could be some crazy thing that happens where Trump, it's just like the House of Cards when the president's like, listen, I got to go. I got to get the heck out of here. I'm going to take the helicopter ride and we're going to let Kevin Spacey run the whole country and just go, the horribleness of that. So, I mean, because I would compare Spacey and Pence. I don't think I'm going too far out on a limb there. They're both creepy, have weird swoopy hair. But in the end, what we're going to be looking at is whether or not there's a major discovery or announcement in Trump's ability to be president for longer when it comes to legal proceedings and problems. Then you could see this where there's a new person who's going to run and Trump will only be a one-term president and it'll be uncontested, or he may have to run against someone because he has all of these things that come out. So we really don't know what's going to happen there.
No, we don't, and that's why I don't want to speculate on that. To me, that seems kind of a pointless endeavor until next year happens, because next year we're going to see whether they want to do that or not. I would wager they're not going to. I would wager that that's not a thing that's going to happen.
I would just be sad if the Mueller investigation never comes to light. So one of the things that they have that is a real possibility is that this Mueller investigation, that all the progressives and people who have a problem with the conservative administration right now, it could never actually come to light. It could remain classified. This is a possibility. And I mean, I would have a hard time believing that this would never come to light, the JFK conspiracy, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Like eventually it comes to, but like the Mueller investigation does not have a requirement to be published to the public. It is a special investigation that has to be reported to Congress, to the House and the Senate and after that they decide whether or not it becomes published. And so we may not know, and so that could also change a huge deal. So like depending on who's going to be in charge, who's going to be receiving, who's going to be analyzing the Mueller investigation, the Mueller report, whatever he puts forth, however it's put forth, if it's never leaked or if it isn't leaked by somebody immediately just because screw the system, we don't know. I mean, what is going to happen when it comes to that? So like there are all kinds of things that could change who, what, how, and when for 2020. So all of these analyses are going to be basically just looking at the statistics of Trump against people, assuming he manages to come out of this all unencumbered and he has to go up against a Democrat.
Yes. So we're going to move past that side of it, right? And we're going to look at that he is going to be the candidate and we're going to have to fight that, right? So there was another article that actually talked about the distribution between districts that heavily voted for Trump and ones that did not, right? There was a discussion between what we would call like a 45 and 55% vote return for Trump. Trump won less than 45% of the vote in 2016 versus where normal candidates would have won in 2018, right? So when we look at there's a decrease in the states that Trump actually won.
Oh, so he saw a decrease in Republican turnout in the states that he won. So like the people that came out to vote for the Senate in the midterm, they decreased significantly compared to when they were voting for himself. Okay.
Yes. But only in states that had a larger percentage margin, less than 45%. That's the difference, right? If your average was between 45 and 55%, the battleground was very close. Though, even though it was close, Democrats flipped more seats in the House than they had before, but not the Senate. And so the idea behind this is that in a larger voting pool, which is the House, right, there was more seats flipped by the Democrats, even between 45 and 55% of the vote that went to Trump in those states. So more states went Democrat than they had Trump or GOP. And the idea behind this is the discussion of saying, yes, when we start flipping votes, what does that mean for the future, right?
Yeah,
what does that
mean for the next
2020?
election?
And that's the whole point of this discussion, right? Is, you and I had this conversation, a month and a half ago, right? The votes came out, the midterms came out, we saw where we stood, we saw where people voted, we saw where we took gains, we saw where we took losses. You and I were a little bit more disappointed that we didn't have more progressive candidates win over some of the standard boilerplate centrist Democrat wins.
But we're kind of extreme leftists in West Michigan.
Yes,
it's hard. It's hard to really have we're fighting a big hill here.
Exactly. Yes. So we are fighting a larger hill than other people are. But the idea becomes, though, is that we were watching the numbers because if we could churn more votes and we could create a larger blue wave in Michigan, even if you and I don't agree exactly with the blue wave, the idea behind it is that we're going to change the perception of Michigan, and at some point we'll be able to change the votes for the presidency. That's the idea behind this.
The big thing is getting the Electoral College.
Yes,
it really does. Like the whole idea of the Electoral College, the census, and all that kind of stuff. Like it really does make a big difference if you can get to the points where it doesn't matter so much how many people per city per district. It matters more so. It's like if you hit the right number per region per state, so that you can win all of those electoral votes. And you can spread that out, you can increase it. So like let's say that the Democrats didn't win as many to win the Republican or to win the House and Senate seats, and even the Michigan State and Senate, the House and Senate seats for the Michigan State legislature. If the total number of votes was larger and more enthused for the Democratic base for those elections, hopefully we can continue that momentum forward, and then you can start seeing the increase. Because I mean, the Democrats had a 3 million vote surplus and still lost in the Electoral College on the last round with the Trump election because of the way the system is drawn. So we need more than 3 million votes. If you do the math for who's, what, where, and how, we need more than 3 million excess votes. Hopefully, some of those districts will kind of realize the error of their ways, and we can flip that. But like, progress everywhere is a good thing. We need a little bit of positivity for the Democratic Party just about everywhere, as opposed to just in a few places that are of interest.
Exactly. So as we close the segment out, there was an article I read that talked about the ideal opponent to number 45, right? The ideal opponent will do this. They will have an enormous social media following across different platforms. They will establish a core base of support that has existed before they started to run.
Yeah.
They will need to be able to pack a stadium, per se, with the amount of people that will show up to support them.
Yeah.
They will also have the ability to present a strong contrast in character and personality to number 45. And they will have a history of organizing people for the vote. Now, they gave examples. For example, they said, these are the people we see. Bernie Sanders is number one. That's one of their top people they think should run.
Besides the mainstream media, Bernie Sanders usually shows up. Yeah.
Yep. I don't agree with that. I actually think Bernie Sanders should be the vice president. He should be the supportive character.
Hell yeah,
in this whole thing. That's how I see it. But
I do too. For the next election, Bernie Sanders should be a vice president. He should be the guy who is like the supporting tier, bringing everything he has to some new person. So new person, Chris. Right now, new person.
I'm all for that. So they talk about somebody like a Oprah Winfrey as a person, and you and I don't know, man. I'm torn between this. I
understand it, but I don't like it.
Yeah, you're right. I dislike the populist factor here, and I dislike the ability to influence politics in the same way. We have Trump because people are like, we don't feel anybody's qualified, therefore we want this populist candidate, this outsider candidate. And he hasn't done anything outsider other than say, I'm going to shut the government down till I get my wall, like a child. He's not done anything else that amazing. I'm sorry, he just has not.
Even before his election, people were like, he's an amazing businessman. But all they got was the reality TV projection that he was an amazing businessman. In all reality, he's a terrible businessman. I mean, he really has. Like, without the fact that he had a bankroll from his daddy for $413 million, he really did fail almost everything he tried. When the Atlantic City casinos and everything else, like the whole idea of that he was this pristine, amazing businessman. It is shown through the history of bankruptcy stuff that that this isn't true. But once it comes to the public persona, what you've been shown as, and that's what he was shown as. That's what he was able to make we talked about the public personality for the presidential election, and like it really does matter. Like, you have to be able to fight that. Donald Trump may be a terrible businessman, but he was able to win the court of public appeal, at least to the point where he was able to get enough electoral votes. Like, we have to have someone that can handle that. And like, as much as I love Bernie Sanders and all the issues that I I don't know who's going to be coming up on that, but I like the idea of a Bernie Sanders vice president. But I definitely think Oprah Winfrey is a terrible direction to go. So
And I do
what
too.
else? What else do we have?
I mean, they have Obama running for a third term, which is
Michelle.
a horrible idea to me. He's
Like have
he
Michelle
hits
Obama.
Barack Obama hits all 4 of those tiers. Now, they discuss. In fairness, they do discuss Michelle Obama hitting all 4 of those tiers, and she does. I have a problem with her experience a little bit. I do genuinely think she's an amazing person, and I do genuinely think that she's a motivator. She is working towards equality for people. She's working towards unifying different sects of government. I just have a hard time with her experience. That's all. And I'll admit it, if she ran and got the nomination for the Democratic Party, I'd vote for her. It is what it is. I mean, I like her. I like her quite a bit.
I'm actually thinking that her new book tour might actually be a public check on whether or not she's going to run for president, a la the Clintonian method. Because if you look at what she's been doing, like the total public surprise of, I mean, she's got the in record time #1 book like of the year. It's been insane. And so like Michelle Obama is really swinging a heavy stick right now. She's slamming the book sales and the book tour and the Stephen Colbert late night television and all that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, it's really good. Like, I think that there's half of that is like, here's my story. This is great. I was first the first lady, but also I think half of that is them checking to see whether or not this is a possibility. And I mean, as much as you and I have issues with centrists and all that kind of stuff, if you threw someone as a running mate was a significant progressive, and you threw some centrist as a presidential candidate, and I think we could find some way to make it work.
Yeah, I agree with you, and yeah, I hate compromises. But
I know.
I think that you and I are stuck in a compromised position for president until we can get some of these local elections to be a little bit more progressive. I mean, look at, you just look at Cortez. I mean, she's very progressive in her spokenness. She's kind of sided with Nancy Pelosi a little bit. We'll have that conversation later on in the show. Not tonight, but
that's something we're going to be doing, the Pelosi Cortez
discussion. Yep.
Yeah, it's a full on.
Yep. And that's just, it is what it is for this point. But she's pushing the envelope quite a bit for centrists. So, there is that. And that's the idea is, right, she's young, she's intelligent. Can she create a difference that is not what you and I would want, but close enough to the truth that we can support it? And I think that's where she's at. And I would like to see her take the next step. But
I would like her to become a Pelosi, someone who spends, a decent amount of time in the system and works her way in there, and then maybe like Elizabeth Warren won't take the jump, but maybe Alexandria would.
But for me, Warren is the next president. Like, I see her as the top candidate, period. But that's just my personal opinion.
But she won't do it. She won't do it. And I don't know. I don't understand what it is. The weird Native American thing was a huge gaffe and a giant mistake. But like outside of that, like she's incredibly electable. I don't understand why, but she won't do it. I will just right now. I will say this: she will not run as one for president. She won't. She won't do it. I would love for her to do it, and I'd love to be proven wrong, and I would love to apologize to everyone that says that she won't. But I don't think she'll do it.
Exactly. Well, as we move out of the last segment of the show, I think we've expressed who we want to run for president in 2020. Mm-hmm. But the idea is discussing the movement behind how do we change where we're at? How do we take statistics, apply it to what we know, and fix things. One of the ideas, was a different debate platform, which the Democrats have considered to allow more minority figures to debate on the stage. I actually approve of that. That's a huge win for me because I think that, and I think we should open it up more from Democratic debate to, who's a leftist, right? Yeah, the Green Party doesn't fit my agenda all the time, but I would like to see them debate some of the Democrats because I think that's a valid conversation that we could have that's not happening right now.
I think the threshold for how you get in could be lowered to that what the percentage of votes that you can get is or whatever, just to bring in a few more parties because it really would be helpful to see a couple of different groups in there.
And I would agree. As we close the show out, we have our standard format where we talk about quick saves for the week. So before Hannah gets into his gibberish,
dude, it's going to be bad. It's going to be so bad.
Before we get into yours, I had somebody send me a link to what's called the U.S. inflation calculator. And at first I was like, okay, whatever. But then I was like, you know what? I want to know what I would make, what my cumulative rate of inflation would be based on my income nowadays, right? So I think this is an important thing because it's taking statistical analysis, right? And it's basing it off all these different things that historically happened and telling you what, let's say in 1913, what $20 would be worth.
Or so your salary would have been worth.
So in 1913, $20 an hour would be worth $510.88 an hour nowadays, right?
Holy shit.
So if you made insane. $20 an hour, you were making $510 an hour in today's standards. So you figure $510, right? And if let's round up. So 511 per hour times 40 hours a week times 52 weeks a year is $1 million a year in income. So you're a CEO level individual.
Real quick. So like basically the argument is that the position that you have or like what are you taking to like bring yourself back to that previous period of time. So like you're taking like $20 an hour, just a random $20 an hour. That's what you're making now. And if you went back, you would be making $20 an hour in like 1900.
No, I would not be making anywhere near that much.
No, what I mean is like what the value of $20 an hour, like so if you made $20 an hour back then, like
yes. So in 1913, if you made $10 an hour, in today's standards, you would be making $255 an hour. And you and I don't see that in any way, shape, or form.
That's brutal. That's cool as hell. So it's just like a calculator. It's like, if you made $20 an hour, this is how much you would be making if you made $20 an hour, like due to inflation in the history.
Yeah. So like, for example, in 1970, if you made $6 an hour, you'd be making $39 an hour in today's standards with inflation, right? So $39 an hour.
So basically, if you made minimum wage in 1970, you should be making $39 an hour to have the same buying power.
No, back. Okay, I don't know what minimum wage was back in 1970.
Well, I'm assuming it's like somewhere in that area.
So I'm just saying, today's standard, right? If back then you made $6 an hour, in today's standard it would be $39.11, which would put you at $81,000 a year.
And we know that's not true. You know what I think? You know what I mean? Like the people that were making at that time period $6 an hour, they're not making $80,000+ a year. So like this is the idea that like the inflation, like wages have not increased with the same speed of inflation.
Yes.
And that should make you a little bit. This isn't happy. I thought you were going to be happy about this one.
I wasn't. I'm sorry. Like, so we could take, we're going to take 2002, and I made $6.25 an hour. In today's standards, that would be like making $8.79 an hour. So essentially, the year after 9/11, what my minimum wage would be $8.79 an hour. And see, the whole point of this discussion, right? The whole point of me finding this is to say we should take whatever you were making per hour back then, plug it in there, put today's date, and say this is what it's worth. So if you were making in 2002 $6.25 an hour, nowadays you should be minimally making $8.79 an hour. No questions asked. There shouldn't even be a conceivable possibility. And what they need to do is take, all these different averages, right, and all these different things, and take these and combine them statistically together to create some sort of a average with a statistical variant to allow for us to predict what wages and minimum costs and inflation costs should actually be. And that's the point of this discussion.
Minimum wage could be tied to inflation. Like it could basically be adjusted to a very simple equation. I mean, this is not complicated economics, that you could tie the minimum wage value to the economic growth and to the inflation model. I mean, this isn't insane. That would be something that would be pretty easy. So if the United States economic model grew at 2%, and inflation grew at 2%, wages would grow at 2%. But we keep seeing, for the APR or the annual percentage rate growth of wages, 1.5%, 1%, less than 1%. With those numbers, you're not keeping up, and people are just falling further and further behind.
Exactly. What was your quick save?
You notice that laugh's a little bit weird, a little bit evil. Okay, so we're including the link in here. You have to be my friend, I think, to see this. I'm not 100% certain how I've set up my Facebook security protocol. I'm pretty sure it's wide open, but if you can get into it, just send me a link, send me an ad, and you almost immediately get friended. Is the weird verbiage of the times, but this guy that everyone should have a pet troll. I don't know if you're familiar with the idea at all, but like I let one guy in, and this guy is my go-to guy for insanity. So like I post stuff all the time, and he's the guy that comes in and just spouts garbage. This guy's name, he it's a fake name, it's a fake picture. He calls himself Mundingo. He is, probably in all efforts, just a genuine racist when it comes to that specific title. But I posted something that had a friendly reminder that the Holocaust was legal, slavery was legal, segregation was legal, but also hiding Jews was criminalized, freeing slaves was criminalized, and protesting racism was criminalized. And so the whole idea is that you can't use legality as morality. And I agree with that. That is a pretty cool thing. And so this guy's first post that brought in the whole beginning of this was that these negative events are pre-planned events created by an extraterrestrial observer who feed on the negative energies released by human suffering. I am not joking. Earth is a farm, a zoo, a matrix, and these events are all in the hands of the dark ET groups who manipulate human behavior as a form of game.
He's crazy.
He posted 3 links immediately. The reptilian blood legacy, news agency claims Snowden docs prove aliens helped Hitler, and he posted a thing on Freemasonry, which and then the last one was he posted this weird statue thing that looked like a reptile with a crown on its head, and I keep this guy around to remind me of where the internet goes sometimes. Like, it really is that vast, deep, dark, and terrible. And you need to remind yourselves of you need to spend the time and take a look at what you're doing. Make sure you know your links and don't let it get out of hand, because it could be this guy. If you don't pay attention to teaching your kids or teaching yourself not to share garbage, you could turn into this guy. And it's really bad.
That's true.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
That is very true. Well, thank you so much for joining us this week on Cellar Door Skeptics. We are episode 156, having an amazing time. Woo. Join us on Patreon, Skype, I don't know, all the amazing social media links. I'm too drunk to care about all the social media links.
Just find us in the streets and hit us, whatever.
Yeah, do what you got to do. But send us an email at cellardoorskeptics@gmail.com. But anyway, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We'll be back next week with another amazing episode. And then we have our holiday break where we're going to have a couple of different versions of episodes for you. So thank you all for joining us, and have another amazing night.
Skeptics.com. You've been listening to a presentation of Cellar Door Skeptics. Check us out on Spreaker. CellarDoorSkeptics.com.